Ho-Oh is one of the greatest legendary Pokemon in history. This majestic legendary phoenix was released 26 years ago in Pokemon Gold. 26 years of competitive excellence. In every single generation of Pokemon, Ho-Oh is amazing, holding its own against new and more powerful legendaries being released in every new game. And in fact, in Generation 9, Ho-Oh is seemingly better than ever. In a recent tier change for Gen 9 Ubers, Ho-Oh moved up to the S rank, equaling the power level of Koraidon. Ho-Oh is absolutely immune to power creep, and it has outperformed so many other legendaries, whether they're older or younger. It has outperformed Mewtwo, its own counterpart in Gen 2, Lugia, and even Dialga and Palkia have fallen off in recent games, while Ho-Oh remains on top. I think that's really cool because I happen to be very fond of Ho-Oh. It's one of my favorite legendaries. It's a beautiful visual design, it's magical, it embodies what a legendary Pokemon should be in my opinion. So why don't we take a look at Ho-Oh and how it has evolved over the years and changed its identity. How it has kept up with power creep with some incredible buffs that it has received, as well as multiple mechanical changes impacting it time and time again. Ho-Oh debuted in Generation 2 of Pokemon as the box legendary of Pokemon Gold, and this thing was unbelievably powerful for the time. Ho-Oh's stats are outstanding, and it's a pretty interesting stat distribution, isn't it? Because it has really high attack of 130 and really high special defense. Special defense is its highest stat, with base 154. So Ho-Oh is a bulky attacker that's also respectably fast at 90 speed. Ho-Oh has a fire flying typing, which is also an interesting type combination for this stat distribution. It happens to be vulnerable to a lot of common special attacking types like electric and water, so maybe that helps balance things out a little bit. In the early Pokemon games there was no physical special split yet, so Ho-Oh did not have any physical fire type attacks to take advantage of its fire stab and its high attack stat. For that reason, Ho-Oh is usually used as a special attacker in Generation 2, just because it happens to have better fire type moves and fire is its preferred attacking type in that metagame. Ho-Oh has the signature move Sacred Fire, which is, to this day, one of the best attacks in all of Pokemon. This has stood the test of time. It's an incredible move. It's a 100 power fire type attack with 95 accuracy that has a 50% chance to inflict burn. That's an incredibly high chance to inflict burn. Funnily enough though, in its debut game, this move was not actually as amazing as it sounds because of that 8 PP. It's actually pretty easy to stall Ho-Oh out of its Sacred Fires, especially because Snorlax is such a powerful Pokemon in Gen 2, and it just uses Rest as its form of healing, so it immediately will cure burn and shrug off the damage well enough. So in Generation 2, Ho-Oh would rather just use the less exciting Flamethrower purely because it has a higher PP of 24, and the burn is often very easily dealt with by Rest, which is everywhere in Gen 2. The way Ho-Oh is used in Gen 2 Ubers is pretty simple compared to what it would become in later games. It's just a guy that heals with Recover, spreads Toxic, and clicks Flamethrower on the steel types that are immune to Toxic. It also has Whirlwind, which is useful against enemies spamming Hearse, which is a popular boost in Gen 2, especially good against Snorlax. And that's good enough here. The combination of a powerful Fire Stab and Toxic is a good one that will serve you very well in this metagame. In Generation 3 Ubers, Ho-Oh becomes a lot more interesting. It has more set variety now and more options. Ho-Oh was granted an ability in this generation, the ability Pressure, which is a little bit unexciting. It's just an ability that causes the enemy to lose twice as much PP when they use moves against you. A lot of legendaries get this as a default. It is kind of useful on Ho-Oh though, as it has bulky sets that use options like Carmine, Recover, and Substitute, and those can actually abuse Pressure pretty well as they eat up the enemy's PP over time. It's not the most important aspect of Ho-Oh though, it's not its most important trait. In Generation 3, Ho-Oh became much more effective as a physical attacker thanks to the new option of Choice Band. Choice Band Ho-Oh is really good here. Shadow Ball is a nice option because it's a ghost type physical attack that is able to hit Latios super effectively, and Latios is actually the #1 Pokemon in Gen 3 Ubers. Earthquake is pretty universally a top tier physical attack, obviously. Great to have ground coverage. And there are plenty of Pokemon you can hit with this in Ubers, like Metagross, who is very common. And Hidden Power is able to be physical in this generation, so you can Hidden Power Rock for super effective coverage against enemy Ho-Oh, or perhaps Lugia, perhaps Rayquaza as well. Hidden Power Flying is also an option if you want Flying Stab. And this set happens to run Sacred Fire just as a mixed option for that fantastic burn chance, because burning things on hit is a much better concept in this generation. In Gen 2, Rest is everywhere, it's very easy to shrug off that burn, but now it's not quite the case. Rest was nerfed, in the sense that Sleep Talk cannot call Rest anymore. There was a new mechanical change. Snorlax is still a very popular Pokemon, but it commonly drops Rest entirely. You may see Rest on Snorlax sometimes, but it's usually too slow in Gen 3 Ubers. You want more aggressive options like Self-Destruct and Coverage, more attacks to hit more things. So Sacred Fire being able to burn incoming resistances is outstanding here, especially on Kyogre, who can come in and set rain and devastate you offensively, but if they get burned, that's massive for you. You're dealing a lot more chip damage to them now. They're gonna slowly die over time to the burn damage, and you can wall them more easily. Sacred Fire is kind of impossible to switch in against. Not even Latios loves coming in against it, because they could get burned, Snorlax gets burned, even Blissey doesn't love getting burned. Another fantastic way to go on Ho-Oh is with Calm Mind, using the Pokemon as a special attacker. Even though your physical attack is more usable now with more physical options that hit more things, you still have a respectable 110 special attack, and with Calm Mind allowing you to ramp your special attack up even further, Ho-Oh is one of the best win conditions in the whole game. Groudon is also a member of the metagame now, and Groudon sets Sun on the field, permanent Sun with Drought. This is a perfect teammate for Ho-Oh, as this buffs the damage of fire-type attacks even further for you. Sacred Fire can be used here, as it's just an outstanding attack that burns things on hit. But sometimes the 8 PP is actually a problem on this set. You do want to stick around longer with this set, so you do sometimes see people run Flamethrower instead for the higher 24 PP. And Thunderbolt is a logical coverage option to hit Kyogre and other flying types that may believe they can stop you. These are the two main ways to use Ho-Oh, with Choice Band and with Leftovers and Calm Mind, and you can mix and match options on them. Substitute is a good option to give Ho-Oh some anti-status technology and help it get free turns with enough Calm Mind boosts, and also to Pressure Stall. Toxic is a good option on certain teams, and you can even consider options like Thunder Wave and Whirlwind here. It's a fun Pokemon in Gen 3 Ubers, and I like that it's an interesting combination of offensive and defensive, and it can lean into both of those things in interesting ways. And on the offensive side, it's even a mixed threat. It has special attacking and physical attacking options that are both effective on it, so I think it's cool, and I think that pre-physical special split and pre-stealth rock, this Pokemon has a pretty unique identity here in Gen 3 Ubers, using sets that it doesn't really use later in the series. In Gen 4, Ho-Oh kind of got buffed and nerfed at the same time. No new ability yet, still just Pressure. And Pressure is less relevant here as Ho-Oh became much worse defensively. Stealth Rock was introduced in Generation 4 and Ho-Oh was absolutely devastated by this because Stealth Rock is an entry hazard that deals damage based on your typing, your weakness to Rock specifically. And Ho-Oh is times 4 weak to Rock, so if it comes in on a Stealth Rock, it's taking half of its health and damage. Absolutely dreadful for Ho-Oh. But at the same time, the physical special split occurred in Generation 4. Now all moves can be both physical and special, they're not just binary based on what type they are. So it would seem that Ho-Oh is now much better at using that attack stat, especially because Sacred Fire is now a physical attack. That is a massive buff for Ho-Oh, and it makes Sacred Fire hit even harder than it did in the past. You also have Stab Brave Bird, a flying type attack with 120 power and a recoil effect. A small price to pay for how hard this hits with your 130 base attack. So this set right here, Choice Band Ho-Oh with Sacred Fire, Brave Bird, Earthquake, and Sleep Talk, is good enough to justify the rock weakness of Ho-Oh. Even though Ho-Oh is rock weak, having good physical stab options now was enough of an advantage to sort of balance things out, and Ho-Oh is still very much viable in Gen 4 Ubers. It's commonly used as a lead actually, because if you just lead with it, you don't have to worry about switching it on Stealth Rock, because it can't possibly happen, you're already on the field. And Ho-Oh is conveniently a very good anti-lead because of Sacred Fire. I mean, Sacred Fire one-shots most frail lead Pokemon in the game like Deoxys attack or speed, and the fact that it has that burn chance is also a way to play around Focus Sash a lot of the time. If you happen to burn them and they survive your hit with the Focus Sash, the burn will then just KO them because they're on 1 HP. Very nice anti-lead. So Ho-Oh with Choice Band and with the new item Choice Scarf and similar sets is really quite nice. And amazingly, more defensive-leaning Ho-Oh sets still survived too. You see those occasionally on Storlia Gen 4 Ubers teams. If you have a solid Rapid Spinner that can clear hazards for Ho-Oh so that it can safely hit the field, the guy still has 154 base special defense and pressure. That's more than enough to wall things effectively. That same classic Fire and Toxic combo from back in Gen 2 works wonders here, and this set actually uses Light Screen to further enhance special bulk. Even super effective hits are going to be shrugged off by this Ho-Oh with Light Screen and a full special defense investment and HP investment. Going all in on the defensive side of Ho-Oh here. In Gen 5, Ho-Oh received its most significant buff of all time, with its new hidden ability. Ho-Oh was blessed with the ability Regenerator. This Pokemon was already powerful enough, we saw multiple generations of it almost not having an ability. I mean, pressure is useful, but Ho-Oh was viable for reasons other than its ability, primarily. But now, it has Regenerator, which is an S-tier ability. Regenerator causes your Pokemon to restore 1/3 of their max HP every single time they switch out. This is the safest way to heal in all of Pokemon. In competitive singles, switches are happening constantly. Always switch into defensive Pokemon, or resists, or immunities, or what have you. So it's incredibly easy to just heal your guy all the way to full by switching a couple of times. Even terrible Pokemon, stats-wise, are launched to new heights if they receive Regenerator as an ability. Think of Mugulis. Average stats all around, but it has Regenerator. And that makes it worthwhile. Now look at Ho-Oh. This gets Regenerator. This guy gets Regenerator. This was an incredible offset to the Rock weakness. Rock weakness is devastating for Ho-Oh, but since you can just heal up most of the damage you took from the rocks by switching out, it feels like way less of a problem. Significantly less. So Ho-Oh is amazing in Generation 5 Ubers for all the same reasons it was in the previous games, with its fantastic stats, move pool, bulk, everything. But now it is passively healing at all times. It is so easy for it to even heal back the damage it takes from the recoil of Brave Bird. This kind of buffed Brave Bird as an option because taking recoil damage doesn't matter as much when you can heal it off so easily. That damage is no longer permanent on you. You don't even really need Recover on Ho-Oh anymore because of Regenerator, so that frees up a move slot for something else. Oftentimes, you can still run Recover, but you can heal without it now. Now, not much changed about Ho-Oh from Gen 5 to 6. It did get Defog in its moveset, but you have to use Pressure as your ability to run Defog, so it's not that good. You'd rather have Regenerator. But some important things changed around Ho-Oh. The introduction of the Fairy type was actually a win for Ho-Oh, because Fire is one of the few types that resists Fairy. This means that Ho-Oh is actually a pretty effective semi-check to the new top dog of the metagame, Xerneas, the box legendary of Pokemon X version. Since you have a massive special defense stat and Fairy resistance, as well as incredible damage on the physical side, Ho-Oh helps teams out a lot against Geomancy Xerneas, and that's really good. Ho-Oh is also existing alongside Mega Evolutions here, which may not sound that relevant, but two Mega Evolutions in particular are great teammates for Ho-Oh, those being Mega Diancie and Mega Sableye, because these two guys have Magic Bounce. Magic Bounce is an incredible ability that can bounce back status moves to the enemy and hazard moves as well. It's an incredible form of counterplay against Stealth Rock because simply by switching in Mega Sableye or Mega Diancie, you will not only guard your team from having Stealth Rock set, you will bounce it back to the enemy. Rock weak Pokemon really love Magic Bounce teammates, and Ho-Oh certainly appreciates this extra support against its greatest counterplay. Even though it was thriving in Gen 5 Ubers without a great Magic Bounce teammate to call a brother, it's gotten even better here with these two very viable and very prevalent Magic Bounce Pokemon in Gen 6. In Generation 7 Ubers, one small moveset change was a massive buff to Ho-Oh. It could now use Defog with Regenerator, which was previously impossible on the cartridge, and this turned Ho-Oh into perhaps the best defogger of Gen 7 Ubers with all of its incredible advantages it's had for years. Now it also removes hazards from the field. That's not only useful for itself to get rid of Stealth Rock, it's useful for your entire team. Ho-Oh also happens to match up against some new faces in the metagame. Magiana is a staple of Gen 7 Ubers, as it's one of the few reliable checks to both Xerneas and Yveltal, as well as just having great typing and utility overall. And Ho-Oh has a resistance to its steel and fairy type attacks, and it threatens it massively with Stab's Sacred Fire. So Ho-Oh of course matches up amazingly into Magiana. It can even shrug off Volt Switch, which doesn't hit that hard when Ho-Oh is so bulky and has Regenerator. And Ho-Oh also super effectively threatens the all-new Necrozma Duskmane, yet another powerful new legendary and a central presence of Gen 7 Ubers. Ho-Oh became much more of a defensive Pokemon in Gen 7 in particular. With this new defog change, you do sometimes see the Choice Band Ho-Oh, but it's much less common now. Leftovers Ho-Oh was probably the most popular, but there was also a Choice Scarf Ho-Oh set that still ran defog because Ho-Oh can afford to come in and press one move and switch out repeatedly, and the Choice Scarf helped it achieve important speed benchmarks to revenge KO things with Sacred Fire, or even Toxic, speed boosted Pokemon, occasionally. Or defog quickly if you need to do that in a pinch. And what do you know, in Generation 8 Ho-Oh got another indirect buff from a new mechanic. The Ho-Oh buffs never end, because in Generation 8, the item Heavy Duty Boots was released, a new item that grants a complete immunity to hazards to the holder. The new best item in the whole game for competitive singles, as hazards are one of the central mechanics here, and just slapping an item on that makes you immune to them completely is incredibly powerful. And it's even more powerful on Pokemon weak to rock, because of how devastating Stealth Rock is for them. Ho-Oh was viable, more than viable, it was excellent, even with its Stealth Rock weakness for years and years and years, and now it can finally bypass its greatest weakness. Its biggest flaw, that Stealth Rock weakness, is now nothing. Dust in the wind. So Ho-Oh obviously got way better with this small change, and Ho-Oh happens to still match up nicely into new threats with its incredible stats that have stood the test of time, especially the special bulk. Even Calyrex Shadow Rider struggles a little bit to break Ho-Oh because it's that bulky, and it has boots now, and it has good damage output too, without even needing investment, by the way. It's something I haven't touched on that much, but Ho-Oh still hits incredibly hard, even with zero attack investment. Just because base 130 attack is massive, and Sacred Fire has 100 power. So you're dealing considerable damage even with no attack investment whatsoever. And now here we are in Gen 9, the current generation, where Ho-Oh is literally better than ever. It is S rank alongside Koraidon. Amazing for a 26-year-old Pokemon. Especially when you consider that most older legendaries have fallen off massively. Not even Mewtwo is keeping up very well. Lugia is struggling to keep up. Dialga, Palkia, Zekrom, Reshiram have all struggled. But Ho-Oh is still going strong. I mean, we've seen how much Ho-Oh has been buffed over the years, receiving good new tools in every single generation. It got Regen in Gen 5, Fairy Resistance in Gen 6, Defog in Gen 7, and Boots in Gen 8. Now in Gen 9, the guy can Terrastalize. Terrastalization was massive for Ho-Oh, as Fire Flying is an exploitable typing, even with Boots. You still suffer from a lot of common weaknesses to water, electric, rock, but now you can patch up the one weakness you had left, your typing. Sometimes. Most of the time it's actually a great typing, especially with Boots. But still, you have weaknesses that can be exploited, but now you can just transform your type to whatever you want at a whim, once per game of course, but it's very much worth doing on Ho-Oh to become a good neutral defensive type like Fairy, easily stomaching an incoming hit when doing so, and turning into an absurdly powerful regenerator wall. But even without Terrastalization, it really helps that Ho-Oh happens to match up incredibly well against the top dogs of this metagame. Ho-Oh is really good against Koraidon actually, because it's so fantastic defensively, and it resists both fighting and fire, two of Koraidon's most common attacking types. With physical defense investment, which is the popular way to go on Ho-Oh in Gen 9, you can come in against Koraidon very reliably, shrug off many of its common attacks, and threaten it super effectively with Brave Bird, and the chip damage they deal to you doesn't even stick because you heal it off with Regenerator very, very easily. The same is true against Zacian Crowned. Zacian Crown is an outstanding Pokemon, a Fairy Steel type physical threat. Guess what? Ho-Oh resists Fairy and Steel, your two stab types. And you threaten them super effectively with Sacred Fire, and even if they do live, miraculously, there's a burn chance on top. So Ho-Oh can decimate the two most popular central offensive threats in this metagame, and then it can just click a move that has a 50% burn chance on any switch-in. So just like it always has, it's devastating. Common switch-ins like Kyogre, resistances, nothing loves coming in on a 50% burn chance. It's such a powerful concept, it truly is. And with Whirlwind, you even have a form of counterplay against Calm Mind Pokemon like Carmine Arceus. Unfortunately, Ho-Oh did lose some options in Gen 9. It can no longer use Defog or Toxic. That's a pretty massive hit, actually, losing those two options. They were important ways for Ho-Oh to be useful and make progress. But still, it gained more than it lost in Gen 9 overall. It happens that the metagame surrounding it is better for it. It matches up well against the two most popular Pokemon. And the ability to Terastallize is also outstanding on Ho-Oh. What really pushed Ho-Oh up to S tier, I think, was probably the fact that Miraidon ended up getting banned to Anything Goes. I mean, Ho-Oh was still excellent even with Miraidon in the metagame, but Miraidon was on every single team at the time, and it makes life a little bit difficult for Ho-Oh when there's this speedy threat that could just one-shot you at any point. Ho-Oh was still good checking other things, and in fact, it's kind of good against Miraidon too, because of Sacred Fire. They can't really come in safely, even though they resist fire. But the banning of Miraidon was overall an incredible positive for Ho-Oh, and it just made the metagame so much better for it. Maybe it's incorrect to say that Ho-Oh aged well. Rather, we should be saying that Ho-Oh was well maintained, because in every single generation, Ho-Oh has received something new that kept it in the conversation, kept it viable. You do have to give respect to Ho-Oh as a foundation. Fundamentally, this is a strong Pokemon, but if it was not for, boots to patch up the rock weakness, regenerated to give it that massive increase in longevity, and in some generations access to Defog, or other new things it has received over the years, Ho-Oh would have probably fallen off like many other legendaries do. Maybe they should look to Ho-Oh as a guiding light for how legendaries, especially older legendaries, should be treated, with kindness and respect, being granted new options that keep them viable and keep them relevant. Ho-Oh has perhaps the most impressive career of any legendary Pokemon, with 26 years of elite level success and viability. I don't know if any other Pokemon can quite match up to that. Maybe Groudon and Kyogre, but even they are a bit younger than Ho-Oh and had primal forms that replaced them in a couple gens. Ho-Oh has been thriving in its own regular old form for longer than many people watching have even been alive. What are your thoughts on Ho-Oh and the way it has evolved as a Pokemon over the years? Let me know down below in the comments, and thank you very much for watching.